Day 4, the River Shannon. The next day they woke up next to a river. After a big stretch and a good sniff in the air, the wolfhound answered what they were all wondering. Ah, the fairies were again kind to us. This is the River Shannon, and the sun is shining. That's a river, asked Robert. It seems pretty flat, more like a lake or a pond. The wolfhound seemed affronted. The Shannon is the longest river in Ireland, stretching 224 miles before it flows into the Atlantic Ocean. It divides the east and west of Ireland, Connaught province to the east and Leinster to the west. The wolfhound turned to James. Here, let's draw it on your map. James pulled out the map and drew the Shannon with the wolfhound's guidance. Look, there's a little cove you four can get clean in, the wolfhound pointed with his nose. After playing in the water until they were clean, the wolfhound brought them to a raft. We should be able to cover a lot of ground travelling by river, said James. They passed the time looking for rocks along the shore and different types of flowers. Sometimes they pretended to push each other in. Stopping for lunch by an oak tree, Susan collected their third acorn while James journaled. Jane looked for flowers and Robert decided to explore. He came back with something in his hands. He set it gently on a log. A frog. Susan screamed and jumped away as soon as the frog moved. James watched with interest. Jane and Robert spent the next 10 minutes releasing and capturing the frog until the wolfhound put a stop to that. The common frog is protected in Ireland. Enough playing with him. The wolfhound paused. It seemed he wanted to play with it too. Instead he continued, You know, that is the only type of frog in all of Ireland. Really? Replied Susan, hope in her eyes. Yes. In fact, the wolfhound continued, there are only 6 reptiles on the entire island. You have over 1,000 in Central and North America. Here, we only have the common frog, which you just found. We also have the natterjack toad, smooth newt, viviparous lizard, and the leatherback turtle. There's a new species called the slow worm, but it's not native. Versus a fast worm, asked James, chuckling. Robert laughed, while the girls giggled. The wolfhound just cocked his head. At the next rest stop, the children grabbed their packs and Robert again went exploring. He found a strange cropping of rock trees, which seemed to be in a circle formation. He wondered if the rock under the grass might be the basalt hexagon they were looking for. He began digging into the mound when a little red squirrel chittered at him and then ran away. Robert kept digging. A badger came at him, a cactus hand with the rock in it, and scampered away as quick as he came. Ouch! Cried Robert. Not an animal in sight, and suddenly you all come at me while I'm trying to work. He shook his head. Robert was getting a bit grumpy but continued to dig. Next, a crested grebe swooped down and attacked his head before returning to the reeds of the river. Robert had had enough and started yelling at them to leave him alone. The noise brought the wolfhound and the other children running. What are you doing? Exclaimed the wolfhound. I am digging out these rocks to see if they are what we need, cried Robert in frustration. Put the rocks back exactly as you found them, then step away, commanded the wolfhound. Robert just looked at him. The wolfhound began to growl, and he snarled. The kids were frozen where they stood, too scared to move. The wolfhound opened his mouth all the way. Okay, said Robert, I'm putting them back. We are all leaving as fast as we can, stated the wolfhound, after you apologize to the fairies. I truly am sorry, whispered Robert, although he wasn't quite sure what he was sorry for. They scampered back to the raft and hopped on. Robert was very quiet. Everyone was quiet. The wolfhound had been very scary. As they meandered along the river, They stopped in several places. James and Jane picked leaves and plants, and Susan kept an eye out for a ragged robin, whatever that was. Jane pointed to a bird in the water. "Look, its babies are on its back." "Yes," replied the wolfhound, breaking the silence. "A crested grebe. It is like the one warning Robert earlier." Robert nodded. "I will pay better attention." Then they carry them and teach them how to swim, dive, and catch fish. Both parents share in the raising and teaching of crested grebe chicks. As they continued down the river, Jane arranged a pretty bouquet of bright yellow-orange flowers she had picked at the last stop. It seemed to help lighten the spirits of everyone. "What are those?" asked Susan. "I don't know," answered Jane, "but they seem happy." "Those are calendula flowers," replied the wolfhound after sniffing them. "They lift the spirits with their colour, or so I am told," sighed the wolfhound. "Lifting the spirits can do wonders for healing of all kinds. The flowers are also good for skin injuries." Susan wasted no time writing in her journal. As they continued to float down the river, the sky turned grey and a soft rain began to fall. The rain followed them as they set up camp. Dinner at the campfire was offered. Not only was it cold and wet, the children tiptoed around the wolfhound. All they could think about him was snarling earlier that day. It was a very sobering thought. They were glad he was on their side. Finally, the wolfhound broke the silence. "Never disturb a fairy fort, or a tree, or a mound. It is destroying their home, and they do not take kindly to those responsible. I know I scared you earlier today. It was necessary. Fairies are neither good nor evil. Just like people, they are capable of both. Destroying their home is an attack, and they may have done something back. I was protecting you." "I don't understand," said Susan. "I thought fairies were good." "And why did all those animals attack me earlier today?" asked Robert. "Settle in for bed and I will explain," answered the wolfhound. The children cleaned up and snuggled in their sleeping bags. The wolfhound closed his eyes and began to speak. It sounded like something he had memorized and was making sure to get it just right. "Long ago, when gods and goddesses roamed the earth, the goddess Danu was Ireland's earth goddess. It is said that the Tuatha De Danann were human descendants of the goddess. They ruled in Ireland for hundreds of years before the Milesians came from Spain and defeated them. The Milesians gave the Tuatha De Danann a choice: leave Ireland forever or stay but live underground. They decided to stay. Using their magic, they became invisible and are the fairy people we know today." After several minutes of silence, Robert spoke up. "So I was destroying their home?" "Yes," replied the wolfhound gently. "The animals around tried to warn you, to stop you. Fairies are protective of their homes just like you are. They would put curses on or deal harm to humans that disturb them. The children didn't sleep well that night, and the next day they woke up to the sound of howls."